Can't hear you. Today's Thursday, August 27th, 2020. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Protests for Jacob Blake continue in Kenosha, Wisconsin. We'll talk to one of the protesters about what he's seeing on the ground. NBA players, they went on strike last night. WNBA players, 3 games on strike tonight. In Major League Baseball, Major League Soccer. We'll give the latest of what's going on. We'll talk with Craig Hodges, former NBA player who was known for his social activism, about what he's seeing in sports today. Also, folks, the March on Washington, the 57th anniversary is tomorrow. We'll talk with the widow of Rayshard Brooks, who is going to be speaking at the rally along with others who have lost loved ones. The RNC, their convention wraps up tonight. There's some black folks who spoke last night. A lot of lies being told. We'll break it all down for you. And Senator Kamala Harris rips Donald Trump today before his speech. Ooh, quite delicious. And you'll meet the woman who saw her home appraisal jump thousands of dollars when she removed all signs of her blackness. The crazy-ass white woman slapped an 11-year-old black boy at a go-kart track. We'll tell you what happened. Plus, a new round of anti-Trump as veterans go after him, as well as Republicans. A former member of his administration comes out and says that Donald Trump absolutely was helping white supremacists in America. It's time to bring the funk. Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin!
Last night, the 4th night of protesting in Kenosha, Wisconsin, of course, 5 days after a black man was shot in the back 7 times. Jacob Black is still hospitalized. His father says he is paralyzed and he's actually handcuffed to the bed. No explanation of why that's the case. Although curfews was set for 7 p.m., demonstrators took to the streets to make their voices heard in various protesting. Here's some of the video, folks, of the protests that took place there. Folks are marching down the streets. You see them, hearing them as well. There have been other nights where, of course, you have seen trucks set on fire. And, of course, with the last night, the militia, the folks who were out there the last couple of nights, they were not there last night after one of their own 17-year-old white boys being arrested for the murder of 2 people. And so that's what's been going on there. Today, Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. arrived in Kenosha to address the shootings of Jacob Blake and the pattern of killing black people in a news conference there.
I want to make this point clear. There's a pattern of killing black people. When Roof killed 9 black people in church in Charleston, South Carolina, police took him to get a hamburger before taking him to jail. He walked away. The killer walked away free. When George Floyd was killed in Minnesota, the killer went home that night. The prosecutor said nothing could happen. The next day when Keith got the case, first time in the history of Minnesota black police had been indicted for killing a black. Breonna Taylor, the killer in Kentucky, still walks free today. The killer of Jacob, still home, the shooter, walks free today. The fact of the matter is, the prosecutor said in Minnesota they could not find a case against the killer of George Floyd. Keith Ellison, as Attorney General, moved quickly, indicted them. Now they're guilty to be proven innocent because of the horrendous killing. The burden upon the state's attorney in this state, Attorney General, to move and move quickly. We must know that justice works for the people. Second, I want to make this concern that shot in the back 7 times.
7 times. In front of his children.
No, just in front of his children. No justification. When before McDonald was killed in Chicago, covered up the tape. 400 days, 16 shots. The line said he approached him with a knife. The film showed he shot him in the back. 16. Paid $5 million for cover-up, and it didn't work. So whether Kwame McDonald, Breonna Taylor, or Jacob here in Wisconsin, pattern, we demand justice from the country. There's a kind of moral desert at the top.
Joining me now for a look at what's happening on the ground is one of the protesters, Kendall West, founder of the African American Club. Kendall, glad to have you in Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hi, sir. How are you?
Doing great. There is this perception that all you see are out-of-control white folks out there protesting in Kenosha, a city 75% white. What is actually happening there from your perspective?
From my perspective, the black population, the largest black population, are there as well. But to be honest with you, we are the ones that are doing the majority of the peaceful protesting. We've been organized. We've been very vocal about the actions that have been taken up until this point, from the shooting until present. So with that being said, we respect the law enforcement's rules, regulations, policies, procedures in reference to their, their orders when it comes to different curfews and stuff like that. So the agitators, the people who are out here making things worse, aren't of our majority. Sure, we may be a minority group, but of the majority of people that are out there protesting, our community is doing it the right way.
So are there any African Americans? So first of all, are y'all protesting in a separate location than what we're seeing each night? Because that video we showed where that truck was burned out is near the courthouse. And so what's going on there? And have any African Americans gone to where they are and literally said, hey, y'all ain't repping us. You're not repping Jacob Blake. You're not repping Black Lives Matter. Y'all are sitting here making us look bad.
Absolutely. So the first part, when it comes, I guess the larger group of the African American population, I wouldn't say that we're centrally located, because everyone is everywhere at this point. But we started at the courthouse, and the first night of those protests, starting out there at the courthouse, it was dispersed, and it's kind of moved from that point on to other sections of the city. Now, with that being said, I know for a fact there are people, black men, black women, not just black men and women, but there are people. For instance, there's a friend of mine. His name is Ronnie Brown, and he stopped one of these agitators from burning down one of the museums. He's been very, very vocal, very, very active. Not just him, but Alvin Owens, who's been very, very active as well. Dr. Pritchard, Ray Lopez, all of these different people that I can name, who have literally been giving their souls to this movement, because we have the ear of the people outside of Kenosha, because this systemic problem has been going on for many, many years.
So do you believe that what should, and again, just let me know if this is actually happening, is there a particular group or groups who are saying we're going to take charge of this, meaning we're going to have organized protest. We're going to say, this is where we're meeting. This is the time we're meeting. This is how long we're going to go. And then that sort of separates from what you're seeing out there. Because, again, the actions that we're seeing in Kenosha by a lot of these white folks that are being live streamed by other white folks, for me, I'm sort of like, hell, where are the black folks who are live streaming? And look, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I got no problem. We have a component where we can literally send one of your folks a link where they can actually stream from their Android or their iPhone. So that way, that is actually getting out than what we're seeing. And so, is there any plan or any effort to say we are going to take control of this? And so, if anybody's doing anything outside of this, they are not having anything to do with us.
Absolutely. So I guess to unpack all of that, there are groups. Unfortunately, we don't have a larger following because we got a small city. We're not Milwaukee and we're not Chicago. We're snug in between the two. So our following isn't as heavy. But there are people, for instance, Jesse Franklin, who is an activist in Milwaukee. He has come down. Again, Alvin Owens has been very, very vocal when it comes to organizing. They send out direct information through social medias and stuff like that, social media apps, and they give you dates, times, where to actually go when it comes to locations, what we're going to be doing when it comes to marching, where we're going to be located, how we're going to march, what the chants are going to be. It's very, very militantly organized, and for the most part, we haven't had any issues when it comes to the peaceful protesters. It's when the lights go out. That's when we have the issues, and people, unfortunately, people don't want to see the positive side of the African American community here in Kenosha. They want to see the other side, and the other side is literally holding on to, I guess, they're being put into a position where if you can get a few African Americans in a big group of agitators, then they're getting pointed out, and that's, in my opinion, not fair.
Do you believe that what we are seeing are folks who are indeed provocateurs, people who are there to do things to give the protesters, the people who are doing it right, a bad image? I've heard that in Portland, and we know in Minneapolis that there were white supremacists who were mixed in, who were causing the mayhem.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I witnessed things myself. Kenosha isn't that big. I was born and raised here. I have went away for school and military and things of that nature, whatever. When I came back, it's still pretty relatively small. With that being said, I know a lot of people. I know familiar faces. I know different faces, and the familiar faces are those who are in the peaceful portions of everything. The people that are coming from out of state, I don't understand why we're even seeing license plates that have Washington State. When it comes to, and I'm sure Wisconsin's great. It's amazing. We love especially the lakefront is amazing. But I haven't seen it. People coming from Utah. People are coming from all these different places, and they're centrally located in the areas where we're having issues. And the problem that we're having is it sucks even more because I've been able to see people not being able to hold their opinions on social media and things like that. So with that being said, I kind of want to bring to the forefront when it comes to these agitators. They're burning down the wrong neighborhoods. They are burning things that are literally for the black community. And these things and these places, I mean, from small business owners to or black small business owners to displacing kids or minorities, period, in a specific area. Now, this is not fair because to us, we know better. We know that these areas they're off limits. If you're going to protest this situation, why burn down the same population that represents the community that you're protesting for, which gives us and which gives me the opinion that it has to be someone from the outside, because there is no way you should be burning up the uptown in Kenosha, because that is our area.
So have you or any of the other black protesters, has MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, these networks, have they reached out to y'all? Because again, if you look at what's being paid, now you've got all the candidates who are speaking on what's happening. People are demanding folks should be calling folks out for this. You've got, of course, these athletes who are now outraged by what happened with Jacob Blake. But again, I think just like what we saw in Portland and Seattle and other places, it begins to take this whole turn away. And again, I'm watching these live streams at night. I'm up till 2 and 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm seeing a whole bunch of white people. I'm seeing maybe 1, maybe 2 black people, but for the most part, I'm seeing nearly all white people.
Your vision is not flawed. You are seeing exactly what you described. To answer your earlier question, are they reaching out to us? I believe that they're reaching out to the people who are there for the photo op, unfortunately. They're there to say that I was in the presence of this guy, that guy, and the mayor. Whereas there are people who I've named earlier, just a small few, who are literally the people who are making the progress that needs to be done and needs to be seen. For instance, we have Frank Nitti, who's out of Milwaukee, who's marching to Washington right now with my business manager, Billy Violet. They are marching for this cause, and they have had issues and things like that. But I don't know if they have received the national news that they actually deserve. So that way we can have these conversations, not just have conversations, but have these conversations directed to a solution. Now, I apologize for talking too much, but
no, you're fine. You're fine.
The solutions are there, but no one wants to hear it. For instance, as the founder of the African American Club, it behooves me to believe that there has never been an African American club in the city of Kenosha, the state of Wisconsin, and or the entire United States of America. And with that being said, that hurts my soul, because we have other societies that have these places for African Americans or for their cultures to be developed, or their cultures to be experienced and enjoyed, except for us. So I took it upon myself to start the process of erecting a facility for the African American community and those who would like to enjoy the culture, to learn about the culture, not just the watered down slavery conversation of our history. We are inventors, we are doctors, we are lawyers, Black people are great. And it is up to us to show how great we are, but not just that, but to take ownership of it, because our culture is getting appropriated or misappropriated every single day. Things go viral every single day off of Black culture, yet the majority are those who are getting the accolades and things of that nature.
So if there are, do this here. I mean, we have information. If any of your people, if they are live streaming, if they're live streaming your protest, I'm going to send our folks get your information.
I have a guy. He live streams. His name is Corey, and Corey is literally he's the eyes on for us.
All right. So Corey's the one. So he's shooting and he's live streaming. So and he's live streaming where?
Facebook. If I'm not mistaken, he has all the social medias, and he records. He's one of those skateboarding guys, so he moves around. So here's
what we'll do. We will connect Corey with our digital folks, and then that way, when y'all are protesting, we can pick that up and actually stream it on all our platforms. I mean, I got 2.7 million. And then that way that goes out. And then what's also important, if y'all are sending out where you're protesting and times and information, we can also amplify that, so people know that these are the legitimate protesters. This is what people are doing. These are folks who have an agenda, who live there. And I got no problem calling out other national media saying this is who y'all should be talking to.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have those people's information.
Okay.
You can contact me. You can contact my business manager, Billy Violet. When it comes to all of these things, if I'm not mistaken, another big one is going to be Saturday at 2 p.m. at the Civic Park. and that's going to be right across the street from the courthouse, and that is going to be us. And those people, whatever, who understand that the peaceful protesting, it works.
Got it. Yep.
And we're here for it. So, but yeah, and like I said, there are things that are in the works to kind of change the narrative, or to actually just change the narrative, especially when it comes to our community. Being here, coming back here, I observe that there's nothing for us to do, nothing for us to have or call our own. And again, that's the reason why I like to plug the African American Club. Donations are going to be there. Go to the AfricanAmericanClub.com. You can call me back if you have any questions or anything like that at 866-255-1865 or 866 BLK 1865 to get an idea of what the African American Club is, what we're planning as a social club as well as a business incubator, so that way we can harbor and foster those Black-owned businesses and Black-owned community inside of the African American Club. Tagline: Stronger Together. Tagline: Black Wall Street, Kenosha. All
right. Well, look, I will have my booker send an email, get other information, so we can push that out and amplify that. Kendall, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much. Want to bring my panel, Dr. Greg Carr, Chair, Department of Afro-American Studies, Howard University, Reese Colbert, Black Women's Views, Erica Savage-Wilson, host Savage Politics Podcast. Greg, I'll start with you. Bottom line is, this is why you have to have, again, independent Black media, because, again, what we are seeing every night, we are seeing white folks out there protesting in the streets. We're seeing them burn stuff up. You hear this brother saying, no, I'm from here. That is not us. And that has to be stipulated so folk understand really what's happening.
Of course, brother. And yes, it is. No question. Everything I support, of course, Brother West, and everything he's saying. I think we have to be very careful, though. There is no standard that Black people can meet in this country that would satisfy our open enemies. There is no respectable level of protest. There is no refraining from breaking windows or anything else that would stop these people. Kyle Rittenhouse is a white terrorist, and so are the police everywhere, including Kenosha. They gave him water bottle. He's got his long rifle over there talking, and this boy goes over here and starts his murder rampage. And we saw that he would be rewarded. If he wasn't arrested, he'd be like Mark and Patricia McCloskey at the Terrorist National Convention this week. He would be given a medal. He would be given a platform. My point is this. Brother Kendall can try to educate all he wants. You go back to the Atlanta insurrection of 1906. Dr. Du Bois was like, and living in Atlanta, saying, I think the world is just thinking wrong about race. And then they lynched a Black man and stuck his knuckles in the butcher shop window, put them on display. My point is this. There is no way to convince these white nationalist terrorists that we deserve to be human. The only thing they are going to respect is when we break their backs through economics, through politics, through organizing. And those white people who don't want to be on the wrong side of history need to join us. But it ain't about how many windows you shattered or whether you shattered them or not. As Charles Blow said in the New York Times yesterday, their job is to spread confusion and obscure reality. They have a reality and they're going to stick to that. I don't give a damn if we all marched in line silently and ain't break nothing. That's not the issue.
See, here's the deal, Erica. My deal is not making them comfortable and saying, oh, no, we're all peaceful. The issue for me is I want to make sure that Black people are the ones who are getting the attention and are speaking to the issues in Kenosha, and not have national media just show these images of a bunch of white folks running around. And as you heard Kendall say, they're looking at the license plates. Look, the white boy, Kyle Rittenhouse, was from Illinois. He said, we got white folks who are coming in from all these other parts of the country, which says they're not local. And so what they're doing is just running to the next hotspot, bringing all their mayhem, acting a fool. And there needs to be somebody to say, no. Where are the people who are from here, who are going to be living here when these fools move on to the next hotspot?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Roland. And, we've seen this in the cause that Tamika Mallory and Linda Sarsour have taken up in Louisville, Kentucky. I saw Facebook videos of white domestic terrorists, a.k.a. militia groups, that were occupying the areas with which they are protesting. They were recording license plates, and they were actually reporting live hour by hour of what the activity was against what they consider to be radical Black and brown people. So, I do agree with what Dr. Carr said around, there's no way that a Black person can comport themselves to really gain some level of sympathy or understanding or empathy or really kind of alignment with what's right. But also, to your point, Roland, about ensuring that people that are on the ground organizing and doing the work are the folks that are talked with and connected to, because we've seen Tucker Carlson successfully with his white terrorist campaign continue to lift forward and place sympathy around Kyle, who is in fact a white domestic terrorist. So that's why platforms like this are of the utmost importance. And that honestly, it is up to the audience to really kind of share out this platform in a much more meaningful way, because even though, mainstream media is very much so prominent, digital is taking over. And so again, we are in this new era of civil rights, and it definitely is going to require that all of us get involved, not just a few people, but all of us.
The key here, Reese, is making sure Black people stay centered. Because, see, again, what happens in this, and we see it, it's already happened. Jacob Blake gets shot 7 times in the back on Sunday around 5 p.m. All of a sudden, you have protest. And then you have, all of a sudden on Tuesday, white boy loses his mind, comes with a gun. He kills 2 people, both white, shoots a 3rd person who's also white. And so all of a sudden, now the conversation is actually a white supremacist who fires his gun, who shot 3 white people. In the midst of that, has nothing to do with the actions of Kenosha, Wisconsin, and how they treated this Black man. And so I think what always has to happen, and it was the same thing that happened in Portland when we had the folks on with the Vote Wall group. My whole deal is that's where the messaging has to go out, where Black folks say, hey, that bullshit, that ain't us. So don't y'all come here talking about Black Lives Matter and talk about Black people. No. Go get y'all white folks who over there acting a fool. That's not us.
Yeah, I mean, Roland, I do agree with you in the sense of how these movements tend to be gentrified in Columbus by white agitators. And, they do manage to slip in the white supremacists and white nationalists and the white domestic terrorists like Kyle Rittenhouse. And actually, I wouldn't even call that slipping in, because here you have the Kenosha police in tanks for peaceful protesters that are lollygagging and handing out water to armed domestic terrorists.
And saying glad y'all are here.
Exactly. So I still tend to side with Dr. Carr on this. This is not about respectability. This isn't even about order in terms of peaceful protesting. The order is about the social order of white supremacy. And that welcomes violence, whether it's white victims or Black victims. If you're standing on the opposite side of that white supremacist social order, then you're collateral damage, and the person who kills you, who's a white terrorist, becomes a martyr on Fox News, Tucker Carlson and Ann Coulter and all those other degenerates. And so I don't think that it's a matter of how we comport ourselves. As Eric also said, I think it's more of a matter of the media doing what they want to do. And as Black people, we have a duty to do what your show is doing, which is centering the Black voices, not for the sake of saying, look how respectable we are, but for the sake of making sure that our issues are centered. The fact that Jacob Blake is handcuffed to a bed, what crime did he even commit?
And the cops will not say why he is handcuffed. And so I just think that, again, while these things are happening, is we have to make sure, because look, we know how mainstream media is going to play the game, okay? We know it. They follow the mayhem. All right?
Yeah.
You set it on fire, shots fired, they're showing up. You got a peaceful protest where they're talking about issues, they're not there. And so my whole deal is we've got to make sure that when these things happen, we're constantly centering that, because when they this all go back to controlling the narrative. That's just bottom line. You control the narrative. When they take the narrative, then that thing is just gone, and it's hard as hell to rein that thing back. And so that's one of the things that we hope to see right there. And speaking of talking about controlling the narrative, we're seeing this right now, of course, with the NBA, the strike that took place as well. NBA players have pledged to resume the season. The plans were confirmed today by two people who were part of the discussions, who spoke on condition of anonymity because talks were ongoing about several details, including when to return to play. And the athletes' protest began when a walkout with the Milwaukee Bucks players, leading to the NBA to postpone all the playoff games. Well, actually, no. The NBA didn't postpone jack. The Milwaukee Bucks and Orlando Magic said, we ain't playing. Then the Houston Rockets and the OKC Thunder said, we ain't playing. And Lakers and the Portland said, we're not playing. NBA had no choice. Then, of course, what we also saw, we saw that there were 5 Major League Soccer games. There were baseball games not played involving the Milwaukee Brewers. Also, the WNBA players said they're not going to play. In fact, the WNBA released their statement. 3 games that were scheduled tonight are not going to be played as well. Not only that, the Oakland A's dropped this statement. Go to my iPad. The Oakland A's organization fully supports our players, the athletes across Major League, MLB, NBA, WNBA, MLS, and the black community in the historic efforts to end racial violence and inequality. We stand with our players in drawing attention to the racial injustice facing the black community in our country. We will continue to amplify our players' voices and voices within the black community in Oakland, and to use our platforms and resources in service of real change. And so that was the Oakland A's that dropped that statement. Now, remember, that statement was actually from the team. This is the statement that was released by the players. Social injustice and systemic racism have been part of the fabric of our lives for too long. We have a responsibility to use our platform to lend our voices for those who are not being heard. We need to continue having the uncomfortable conversations and work towards being a unified force for change. These conversations will push the boundaries and enable us to come through on the other side with impactful results. All too often, we hear about the plight of our fellow man and fail to act. It is long past due that these communities are being heard, seen, understood, and supported. We will not take the field tonight to help raise awareness for these social issues, not just tonight, but for our collective future. This is the first step in our relentless pursuit for meaningful change. Now, there's a diversity alliance in hockey. They are calling on the National Hockey League to actually suspend all playoff games. This is the Milwaukee Bucks with their statement last night.
Well, as you can see, we all thank you guys for taking upon your time to stay here with us. We're sorry that it took a little bit more time, but we thought it would be best for us as a team to brainstorm a little bit, educate ourselves, and not rush into having raw emotion, giving you guys things like that. So on behalf of ourselves and our team, we're going to place a statement as a team today and go back and continue to educate ourselves and get better awareness of what's going on, and then speak to you guys later. So we'll come up with a statement now.
Our team statement. The past 4 months have shed a light on the ongoing racial injustices facing our African American community. Citizens around the country have used their voices and platforms to speak out against these wrongdoings. Over the last few days in our home state of Wisconsin, we've seen the horrendous video of Jacob Blake being shot in the back 7 times by a police officer in Kenosha, and the additional shooting of protesters. Despite the overwhelming plea for change, there has been no action. So our focus today cannot be on basketball.
When we take the court and represent Milwaukee and Wisconsin, we are expected to play at a high level, give maximum effort, and hold each other accountable. We hold ourselves to that standard, and in this moment, we are demanding the same from lawmakers and law enforcement. We are calling for justice for Jacob Blake and demand the officers be held accountable. For this to occur, it is imperative for the Wisconsin State Legislature to reconvene after months of inaction and take up meaningful measures to address issues of police accountability, brutality, and criminal justice reform. We encourage all citizens to educate themselves, take peaceful and responsible action, and remember to vote on November 3rd on behalf of the Milwaukee Bucks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you guys intend to finish the season?
All right, folks, again, support has come for this walkout has come from even former NBA players. Here is Chris Webber, a longtime player in the NBA, now an announcer for TNT.
Nothing will change tomorrow. We know vote. We keep hearing vote. Everybody vote. But I'm here to speak for those that are always marginalized. Those that live in these neighborhoods where we preach and tell them to vote and walk away. Charles Barkley came to my high school. Just seeing him in the locker room, seeing his hands and his body, that inspired me. You can't see something, you can't be something until you see it. And when I tell you the little kids that have called me upset, I have a godson that has autism, and I just had to explain to him why we aren't playing. I have young nephews that I've had to talk to about death before they've even seen it in a movie. If not now, when? If not during a pandemic and countless lives being lost, if not now, when? That's all I just want to hear from the rest of the night, where everybody's pontificating and thinking and soapboxing and all of that. We know nothing is going to change. We get it. If Martin Luther King got shot and risked his life, Medgar Evers, if we've seen this and all of our heroes constantly taken down, we understand it's not going to end. But that does not mean, young men, that you don't do anything. Don't listen to these people telling you don't do anything, because it's not going to end right away. You are starting something for the next generation and the next generation to take over. Do you have to be smart? Yes. Do you have to make sure that you have a plan? Yes. Do you have to be articulate about that plan? Yes. All of those things. But that's what you're going to do. They're professionals. They know how to be the best of themselves. And so I applaud it. I applaud it because it is the young people. It is the young people leading the way. And I applaud them.
Tennis star Naomi Osaka pulled out of her semifinals match, tweeting, "Before I am an athlete, I'm a black woman. And as a black woman, I feel as though there are much more important matters at hand that need immediate attention rather than watching me play tennis." Also, head coaches and executives from Cleveland sports teams, the Cavaliers, Browns, and Indians, are forming a sports alliance to develop a sustainable and direct strategy to address social injustice facing the city of Cleveland and all of Northeast Ohio. Well, joining me right now, folks, is Craig Hodges, a longtime NBA player, someone who was very much involved in activism while he was in the league. Craig, welcome to Roland Martin Unfiltered. Craig, are you there? Craig, are you there? All right, folks, let me know. We have the audio for Craig. Let me know when he's there so I can go to him. Let me go to my panel. Erica, we've never seen this level of collective action in sports. So we have Craig Hodges. So, Craig, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we got you, Craig. Now we got you. Craig, we've never seen this, guys, thank you. We've never seen this level of collective action in sports ever. To see the actions of players in NBA, soccer, baseball, tennis, hockey, just your thoughts on what you're seeing.
Well, first of all, brother, I want to thank God for you and giving us a venue that is true and correct. And, right now it's historic times, man. So when I look at it, it's a spiritual blessing that's going on, man. And I truly feel that finally the light is being shed on, people that have sojourned in this land for a long time. And to see the young brothers step up yesterday, and to see people around the world and other athletes pay acknowledgement to our ancestors' legacy, man, it's a beautiful thing for me. And now I believe now is when the work really begins, because it's a paradigm shift, and that old reality is no longer alive. So now we have to create that new reality, and it's a nice challenge for us as Black men, and for the entirety of our community.
When you talk about that particular issue there, so for instance, the players themselves have made it perfectly clear in the NBA that they want to do more. That they were on a call with the owners and making it perfectly clear. I was also reading one story that I found to be interesting, where Michael Jordan, who you played with in Chicago, owner of the Charlotte Hornets, he told the NBA, he said, "Hey, to the owners, listen to them before we start talking." And now the owners are realizing there's going to have to be more that they do as well. I just got a statement that was sent out by the Baltimore Ravens. Guys, go to that. In this statement, the Baltimore Ravens say, though we cannot right all the wrongs of our country's history, we can arrest and charge the police officers responsible for Breonna Taylor's killing and the shooting of Jacob Blake, demand that Senator Mitch McConnell bring the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2020 to the Senate floor, end qualified immunity, require body cameras, ban chokeholds and no-knock warrants, hold police accountable in court, establish a framework to prohibit racial profiling at federal, state, and local levels, support state and federally funded CALEA accreditation and national standards of care in policing. I think, Craig, when you have all of a sudden owners who are going to realize we have no product without the players, we have no choice but to ride with them, because the last thing we want is for more of them to say, we're not playing.
And that's the dilemma, that we have a choice to make right now. We have a choice to create a whole new paradigm where it's going to be true ownership sharing, where no longer is it going to be just an elite class of people that own brothers and have them running. Now is the time for us to sit down as a collective and decide what direction we want to go as, regardless of athletes, entertainers, whatever venue or perspective or in life. Now it's time to toe the line and be, solid with your people, man, because no time in history is like today, because for Nixon, the ping pong diplomacy. And I know when I look at LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kevin Durant, I know who we are. And I know that this is a generation of fulfillment. So what we're seeing is the redemption of a people, and it's never been seen before our eyes, especially us who have built everything under the sun.
What would be your advice moving forward? Because obviously players are saying we want something to happen. You have other people who are saying shut up and dribble. And so if you were talking to them, if they reached out to you, I know that they've reached out to Dwayne Wade and former players, things like that. What would you be advising them? As somebody who, let's just be real honest, your career ended early because of your activism.
Absolutely. Right. So for me, when I look at it, they never should have went to the bubble. And, no one will take us serious until we show that we're serious and we stop playing games. So for me, when they blacklisted me in 1992, I realized why it was. And I realized that now why it is that Michael Jordan is the lead. I understand why Last Dance came out when it did. We have to realize why these things are happening on the corporate level, and to realize that who is really on our team. And that, I look at MJ, okay, I love you, brother, and what you're doing, but at the same time, where you been? So it can't be no Johnny-come-lately thing where I'm at, because right now is the most critical point in the history of our people and this nation. So it ain't, let me say this, Roland, to everybody that's listening. If we don't realize who sisters are right now, and that I want to apologize to all the sisters that's in the sound of my voice and that's seeing me right now, that I'm apologizing that I didn't do more with what I could have done when I played to be able to garner the unity that is necessary in this day and time to prove to the Creator that we deserve divine inheritance. Because what you're seeing is a divine inheritance that's coming our way, and now all we have to prove is through unity and love. So I grew up, I'm a baby of the movement, and I tell my people that we were taught I love Roland more than Roland could ever love me. And if we rolling like that, it ain't never going to be where I'm going to pick up a beef with my brother. I'm going to pick up a weapon that didn't come from me. I'm going to pick up something that's going to harm my people. So when I look at this game, we cannot continue to play games until they know we're serious. And then I'm with the thing where if they don't want to make a new collective bargaining agreement, let's walk away. We're 85% of the product.
The last point here, obviously, this is not ending. I got these people who are saying, oh, the players, that they're jumping on this thing. We don't have all the facts. I've had some other people hit me. And I said, guys, they're not striking because of just Jacob Blake. This is compound. This is item after item after item where they've said, no, we are now going to use our collective voices to say, hell no. And y'all got to pay attention because you watching us play. And if we're not playing, it'll be wise if you listen to us.
And quite honestly, brother, you know, when George Floyd was murdered, Stephen Jackson, and it was a swell of energy similar to the Dr. King energy time. So we're at an energy point spiritually that nobody can put a pulse to, nobody can put a finger on. But we who have been around to see that it's a time and place for karma. And it's a divine karma to this thing that's coming that, you know, some battles ain't even ours. The battles that are those that we have control over. We have control over whether or not we go play. And so many times, to me, it's a cowardly move when we go down to the bubble. To me, when I look at the sisterhood, when I look at the sisters in the WNBA, when I look at the sister Osaka, the tennis player, man, the courage involved in that. And I'm saying, come on, brothers, at which point in time are we going to say we can do, the only thing that the owners provide for us is an infrastructure to play in. That's it. We got the brightest people on the planet in our women who can do payroll, who can do scheduling, who can do uniforms, and can do everything else. So, of course, the NBA is going to give a little bit and then bring Michael to the forefront. Michael can't do that. And I'm telling you now, I'm older than you are. You cannot try to calm this energy among my young brothers because it ain't on you to do that. Don't bring out none of the people that you bought out when it was that Donald Sterling garbage. Because within the context of this racial thing going on within the NBA, they wasn't woke when my brother Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf wanted to say his salah. You wasn't woke when Craig Hodges went to the White House and tell President Bush the same things people crying about today. But we couldn't cry about 900 murders in the city of Chicago in 1991 when we went in our first ring. Oh, we want to go smoke cigars and pop champagne bottles while our people are dying. It's over for that. And check this out, brother. All of this happening in the height of Trump being nominated again. I love it. I love it because it's a spiritual transition that is happening, and it ain't no financial transaction, brothers. So y'all got a choice right now. Choose your people over them trinkets that you think are wealth. Because what Lord has for us in divine inheritance is beyond your imagination, and that little 400 million ain't nothing, brother. So wake up to who you are and the power that you possess so that our sisters will respect us once again. And they have no reason to at this point in time if we don't prove the righteous that we ready to lay it on the line for them and our children, period.
Craig Hodges, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, brother. One love.
This is, this is a true reckoning, Greg Carr, that we're seeing not just in the NBA, but across sports.
Not yet, but we're a little closer. As I'm listening to our brother, I was reminded of his book, Long Shot, his memoir. At the end of that book, he talks about being allowed to defend his three-point championship, even though he was no longer in the league. And he talks about Charles Barkley meeting him at All-Star Weekend in Utah and saying, I know what you're going through, brother. And Craig Hodges was like, well, if you know what I'm going through, you need to speak up for me. And he said nothing. He ends Long Shot, his memoir, by saying that as long as these brothers were in this bubble, to use the language we're using today, you know, they didn't have to prove they were men because they were treated as if they were men because they were generating a product. And so he's absolutely right. Elizabeth Williams, who was the secretary of the WNBA Players Association at the Atlanta Dream, was saying we had to make this stand. All of a sudden, Naomi Osaka is black. She was Japanese until she decided she wasn't going to play, because now she's speaking for herself. She says, hey, a black woman, half her family's Haitian. So, I mean, you see this coming up. But when I say we're not there yet, we've seen this before. It took a bloody civil war for this country to finally come to grips with getting rid of chattel enslavement, direct slavery. And then for a couple of years, there was Reconstruction, as we always talk about. But then there was the white lash. What we're seeing from white corporate America is not a concession. It's an attempt to contain and maintain control. That's why Hodges just said what he said. They're not, this is the white lash. This is the redemption moment. This country will only be transformed when, like LeBron and them, and the white girl tried to clown him. What did you get from the autobiography of Malcolm X? I think LeBron must have been reading that book, because he said we shouldn't play anymore. And then the Lakers and the Clippers say we shouldn't play anymore. And when you start hearing that kind of conversation, that's when we will be indeed in a paradigm shift. But we're not quite at a paradigm shift right now, because they're trying to still contain this, because they understand
of course.
Once that paradigm shifts, it's never going back.
But the thing what we're seeing here, Erica, and not just with them saying we're striking from the game. What we're also seeing is that when you look at what LeBron and others are doing when it comes to raising the money to pay off the debts for the brothers and sisters to get the right to vote back in Florida. When you see them launching this initiative to get young folks to work the polls on Election Day, what you're seeing is, and I totally understand what Craig Hodges is saying, but I think it behooves us to also remember, Craig Hodges is talking about what happened in 1992. We're now talking about, this is 18 years later, meaning it's a whole new generation has come about. This group of athletes, they're not Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, and those players. This is also a different, so I think that also plays a huge role in this in terms of what they're seeing, and we cannot overlook Colin Kaepernick in 2016, because if we also then really unpack this thing, the black athlete who's in the NBA today who's 25, remember, he was 17 when Trayvon got killed. See, all of these things I think that have happened in the last 18 years plays a huge role, and I think why we are seeing a different response where, yeah, Craig Hodges was all alone when he was doing what he was doing, Erica.
Yeah, sure, Roland. I think that's because there was not a real aggressive continuum. So now what we're all feeling is in somewhat kind of complacency that has ruled the day for many, many years on the backdrop of all of the different violence mechanisms that we've seen against black bodies. They've never stopped. They've continued. And then when we think about the WNBA, we think about Maya Moore, who walked away so that she could continue to advocate for a black man who had been unjustly locked up for over 20 years. You know, it just kind of all depends on almost, where the spotlight is. And then that is kind of shine more brightly than it is in other spaces. But I think kind of like in the hour of where we are right now, one of the things that Mr. Hodge said that I definitely can appreciate is that, in essence, because of all of these different atrocities that have continued to happen to Black life, that it would have been a real stand to say, no, we're not going in the bubble at all. That being that the league, the NBA, is over 85% Black, they actually have power, because most people that watch the game, if they're honest, they're looking to see the swag that a WNBA and NBA player has. So when we kind of peel back and to use Brother Hodges' words when he talked about it's not about smoking these cigars and popping champagne, it really has not been about that. But we're in this pandemic moment. We're in this economic collapse. We are in a housing crisis. We now are seeing that this son of a Klansman has said that he is going to do his due diligence to ensure that the vote is actually held up, suppressed, and rigged. And he's going to do that by any means necessary to say that this is a time to pause, to assess everything.
Right.
And great that the efforts that they continue to push, but more needs to be done at this level.
But here's the deal. Here's the deal right here, Reese. First of all, it was 28 years since Craig Hodges, and so you got guys right now in the league who weren't even born when Craig Hodges was whiteballed by the NBA. But what I am hopeful of is when you see a Kenny Stills go from the Panthers to the Texans, and he's still involved. He was there when he got arrested. He was arrested with Tamika Mallory and Until Freedom. When you're seeing that, you are seeing a different level of consciousness from these players than what we've seen before, because before it was a few. Now it's a lot more. And I think as they continue to get more educated, more connected with the information, and the money has also changed. I mean, we got to put that out there as well. You got a cat now, by the time they finish their first contract, they got 10, 12, 15, 20 million they've made. And so the money also changes the ability to be able to determine and use your voice.
Yeah, I mean, I give a lot of credit to the NBA and WNBA players because, to be honest, I mean, being on social media, you see a lot of Black people who make every excuse to do just even the bare minimum of voting. And so these people are putting their livelihoods on the lines.
Got it.
And they don't have actually any direct impact on Mitch McConnell or on the Wisconsin legislature, but they are still taking a very strong stance. And I applaud them for that. And I do applaud that they are encouraging more civic engagement. And I think that that's really the takeaway for me, is that this isn't saying we are martyrs in this situation and we alone can fix it. What they're saying is let's all stop, take a pause, and really recognize the severity of this situation and how we can be engaged and how we can be involved. You know, I mean, I applaud what Brother Hodges said as well, and I applaud the stand that he took. But I also do see that these NBA players and WNBA players and Naomi Osaka and others are doing something very powerful in this moment. And in particular, when we have the Republican National Convention that for the past 3 days has created this alternate reality in which the boogeymen are not the police who are gunning down Black people, but the ones who are actually protesting for a better America. You know, they made out Cori Bush, who won the primary challenge against Lacey Clay, as an enemy of the state. It's absolutely ridiculous. So I think that the timing of them making this very strong stance does help to shift the narrative. It does help to shake the consciousness to the extent that that's even possible in this country. And I applaud them. I don't think that they have any more responsibility than we do, that we excuse ourselves out of doing every day collectively as a society.
Everybody has a role.
My hat's off to them.
Everybody has a role. Tomorrow, folks, the 57th anniversary of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom taking place here in Washington, D.C. They'll be gathering at the Lincoln Memorial. There'll be a march from the Lincoln Memorial to the MLK Memorial. It will also be live stream and virtual. We'll be carrying it as well. Joining me right now, two of the folks are going to be speaking. Tamika Turner, she is the widow of Rayshard Brooks, and attorney Chris Stewart. Tamika and Chris, glad to have you in Roland Martin Unfiltered. Tamika, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Gotcha. Okay, want to make sure you can hear me. So tomorrow, you'll be speaking tomorrow. What do you want the people who are going to be there in person and the folks who are going to be there virtually, what do you want them not just to take away from what you're going to say, what do you want them to do?
Pretty much I want them to just stand up for justice and continue, peaceful protests. And not only that, go out and vote so that laws can be changed and there can be reform within policing.
Chris Stewart, when you talk about that, I mean, look, you see the pushback when officers were fired there in Atlanta involved in the case of Rayshard Brooks, but also those two students who were snatched out of their car from Morehouse and Spelman. You have these cops who fight that back and forth. I mean, look, these are entrenched institutions, and it's going to take sustained action.
Yeah, I mean, people have to realize, me and you have been talking about these cases since Walter Scott. And getting change is hard. I mean, the unions are a very strong factor and a very strong force behind a lot of these police departments. And we have to look past just the cop who killed somebody. We've got to look at the chief and the internal affairs department and the union. I mean, you have to look at the entire system.
Tamika, we have obviously, you are part of a group. Some call it, for lack of a better phrase, they say sorority, a group of women who, mothers of the movement, wives of the movement, who have had to publicly deal with grief in these high-profile cases. How have you dealt with that? This is not something that you asked for. No one asked to be put in this situation.
Correct. You're right about that. It's hard dealing with it. It really is. It becomes an emotional roller coaster each and every day because you want to be strong and you also don't want people to think you weak. So sometimes it's hard when I want to get very emotional and cry and I have to hold it in so that I can continue like how I'm doing, speaking with you to get my point and my word across so that justice can be served and that I'm heard clearly.
And when you talk about, speaking that out, but the other thing is the reality is that you got to continue to relive it. And then the other pieces, though, is that if you don't tell the story, we know that the family puts a face on it as opposed to, no disrespect to Chris and his law partner, but the reality is that that's how people see it, is that they want to hear from the family. And so you have to continue to be there speaking and talking about it.
Right. And that's what's really hard. I mean, it's really hard. It becomes overwhelming, but it's something that I have to do. If I don't do it, who will?
Chris, you and Justin Miller. When we talk about next steps, when we talk about, man, when is this thing going to end? And I hate to say it, but look, black folks have been dealing with this for decades, for centuries. But do you think that we're operating in a different moment now where, one, far more African Americans in elected position, far more African Americans who are DAs, and so you now have black folks who are a part of this system who are now inside, who say not only can we affect this externally, but now we can affect it internally.
Yeah, there are more now. But we're still seeing the same things. And like Tamika said, we just have to keep on pushing and keep on putting that energy out there so that the people know that until real change happens, then we'll be doing this until 2030. The qualified immunity reforms, the reforms to the way police don't de-escalate situations and use lethal force when it's not necessary, are things that we cannot stop fighting for. And if they don't happen, then we're just going to keep going. So right now, I'd say, yes, it is a different situation than it is in the 60s, but it's not good enough to where we can let up one bit. Right?
Absolutely. Chris, final comment. Chris, final comment.
Yeah, I mean, we just got to keep it going, man. Like, even, you continue to push this, all the media continuing to push this, the celebrities coming forward and using economic power, which is the quickest way to change. Marches are great, but when companies start losing money, then that's where change is going to start happening because they'll start pressuring those police departments. So just keep pushing.
Well, Tamika Turner, safe travels for you to Washington, D.C. tomorrow. Same for you, Chris Stewart, as well. We'll be there live streaming the events tomorrow. And we thank you very much for joining us.
All right. Take care. Thanks.
All right, folks. Thank you so very much. Got to go to a break. When we come back, we'll talk about economics. What happens when black people doing what they're supposed to do, buying a home, all those good things, and then white folks decide to undercut the value of their home. We'll talk to a sister who saw it happen with her very own eyes, and she will explain what happened when she got rid of all of her black stuff. It's amazing how the number just increased. And Nikki Haley says you're not dealing with racism in America. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. As our community comes together to support the fight against racial injustice, I want to take a second to talk about one thing we can do to ensure our voices are heard. Not tomorrow, but now. Have your voices heard in terms of what kind of future we want by taking the 2020 census today at 2020census.gov? Now, folks, let me help you out. The census is a count of everyone living in the country. It happens once every 10 years. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. The thing that's important is that the census informs funding, billions of dollars, how they are spent in our communities every single year. I grew up in Clinton Park in Houston, Texas, and we wanted new parks and roads and a senior citizen center. Well, the census helps inform all of that and where funding goes. It also determines how many seats your state will get in the U.S. House of Representatives. Young black men and young children of color are historically undercounted, which means a potential loss of funding of services that helps our community. Folks, we have the power to change that. We have the power to help determine where hundreds of billions in federal funding go each year for the next 10 years. Funding that can impact our community, our neighborhoods, and our families and friends. Folks, responses are 100% confidential and can't be shared with your landlord, law enforcement, or any government agency. So please take the 2020 census today. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. All right, last night was day 3 of that Live Fest, Republican National Convention. Former NFL football player Jack Brewer, who is actually charged with insider trading, he spoke last night. And also 1960 Greensboro sit-in participant Clarence Henderson. They're among those who praised Donald Trump. Oh, just listen to what they said he's done for the blacks.
I'm Jack Brewer, a former 3-time NFL team captain, college professor, coach, husband, son, and father. I'm also a lifelong Democrat, but I support Donald Trump. Let me be clear. I didn't come here for the popularity or the praise, the likes or the retweets. I'm here as a servant to God, a servant to the people of our nation, and a servant to our president. I grew up in Grapevine, Texas, a town that my great-grandfather was the first black man to settle as a sharecropper in 1896. My early high school experience included fighting with skinheads and being a witness in an attempted murder trial after my friend shot a skinhead in self-defense. I remember my dad's bravery when he personally stood up against a KKK rally in my town. In my house, my father taught me to back down from no one. I know what racism looks like. I've seen it firsthand. In America, it has no resemblance to President Trump. And I'm fed up with the way he's portrayed in the media, who refuse to acknowledge what he's actually done for the black community. It's confusing the minds of our innocent children. Before I left to come deliver this message, my energetic 8-year-old son, Jackson, stopped me and said, "Dad, can you please just tell everyone that all lives need to matter and that God loves everyone?" In that moment, I realized that my 8-year-old had figured out what so many adults have seemed to forget. We are not as divided as our politics suggest. At some point, for the sake of our children, the policies must take priority over the personalities. So because you have an issue with President Trump's tone, you're going to allow Biden and Harris to deny our underserved black and brown children school choice? Are we so offended by the president's campaign slogan, "Make America Great Again," that we're going to ignore that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have collectively been responsible for locking up countless black men for nonviolent crimes? Are you going to allow the media to lie to you by falsely claiming that he said there were very fine white supremacists in Charlottesville? He didn't say that. It's a lie. and ignore the so-called Black Lives Matter organization that openly, on their website, calls for the destruction of the nuclear family. My fellow Americans, our families need each other. We need Black fathers in the homes with their wives and children. The future of our communities depend on it. I'm blessed to be able to run inner-city youth programs and to also teach in prisons across America. The inmates in my federal prison program literally receive days off their sentence just for attending my class. And that's thanks to President Donald Trump and his First Step Act.
I am Clarence Henderson. There have been movements that have changed the course of history. Among the most extraordinary was the Civil Rights Movement. 60 years ago, segregation was legal and enforced. The simple act of sitting at a lunch counter could lead to physical harm, jail time, or worse. I know from personal experience. By sitting down to order a cup of coffee, we challenged injustice. We knew it was necessary, but we didn't know what would happen. We faced down the KKK. We were cursed at and called all kinds of names. They threatened to kill us, and some of us were arrested, but it was worth it. Our actions inspired similar protests throughout the South against racial injustice. And in the end, segregation was abolished, and our country moved a step closer to true equality for all. That's what actual peaceful protest can accomplish. America isn't perfect. We're always improving. But the great thing about this country is that it's not where you come from, it's where you're going. And I'm the only one out of my immediate family who graduated from college, an HBCU. I'm a military veteran and a civil rights activist. And you know what else? I'm a Republican, and I support Donald Trump. If that sounds strange, you don't know your history. It was the Republican Party that passed the 13th Amendment, abolishing slavery. It was a Republican Party that passed the 14th Amendment, giving Black men citizenship. It was the Republican Party that passed the 15th Amendment, giving Black men the right to vote.
All right, here's Mike Pence.
We've seen violence and chaos in the streets of our major cities. President Trump and I will always support the right of Americans to peaceful protest. But rioting and looting is not peaceful protest. Tearing down statues is not free speech. And those who do so will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Last week, Joe Biden didn't say one word about the violence and chaos engulfing cities across this country. So let me be clear. The violence must stop, whether in Minneapolis, Portland, or Kenosha. Too many heroes have died defending our freedom to see Americans strike each other down. We will have law and order on the streets of this country for every American of every race and creed and color. Joe Biden says that America is systemically racist and that law enforcement in America has, and I quote, an implicit bias against minorities. When asked whether he'd support cutting funding to law enforcement, Joe Biden replied, yes, absolutely. Joe Biden would double down on the very policies that are leading to violence in America's cities. The hard truth is, you won't be safe in Joe Biden's America. And under President Trump, we will always stand with those who stand on the thin blue line, and we're not going to defund the police, not now, not ever.
I didn't hear a damn thing in that sorry-ass speech where he talked about 7 shots in the back of Jacob Blake. I didn't hear a damn thing, Erica, when it came to anything about the cops kneeling on the neck. See, here's the deal. All that little nonsense. Then Charles Henderson, look, you could have been in the 1960 sit-in and all of that, but he was lying last night when he said Donald Trump is fully funded HBCUs. That's just a lie. It's just a flat-out lie. And you know it's got to be real bad for you to skip over the last 50 years and you got to go back to the 1800s to figure out what Republicans have done. Erica, go on right ahead.
Well, Roland, I think that the reason why we didn't hear any of those, anything related to Jacob Blake is because we saw a Klan rally. And so why would you hear any type of remorse over the shooting of Jacob Blake? Why would you hear any empathy for the family, for Jacob Blake, whose life has been drastically changed at only 29 years old, that this young man has had his intestines and his colon removed, and as you reported at the top of the show, is now being handcuffed by a slave patrol member? You're not going to hear that, particularly when they're telegraphing this maskless, disgusting message from Fort Henry, Maryland, which is the home of many Confederate statues. So, everything that we heard is definitely in lockstep with the regime leader, the son of a Klansman. So he wasn't talking to a diverse group. He's talking to the same person that ensured that brown immigrants and their children, their babies, were locked in cages. He's talking to the same group that feels as though assimilation is the best way to be connected. And that's for that token crowd. This was not a message for America. This was a message for white America, for those who can now boldly really move forward and have this kind of coded message that says that, well, because they do in fact stand for law enforcement, particularly not around this so-called president who has been using the Constitution as toilet paper since he actually walked into office. We're talking about a person that was impeached by the House for obstructing Congress and for abuse against this government, against this country, that the Senate, which is led by Republicans, refused to impeach. And when in fact, Mitch McConnell went on Hannity and said in December of 2019 that they were in concert with the White House and that they were going to do everything that was possible to ensure that the president was in fact acquitted, so to speak. And I'm paraphrasing a bit, but all of that to say this was really par for the course, especially from Mike Pence and from all of those individuals that were gathered there.
Reese, go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, we're not safe in Trump's America. So this whole notion that all of the shit that we're seeing right now in Donald Trump's America is what we have to be afraid of in Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's America? No. And these quisling Negroes that they put out there to say stupid things like all lives matter or I know racism and I don't see racism in Donald Trump. Have you not seen how this person has operated? We don't have to just listen to what Donald Trump says, which is incredibly racist. We've actually seen the way Donald Trump has governed for the past 4 years almost. And so this is not a hypothetical. This is not an academic exercise. This is what we've seen every single day from this white nationalist administration. And so for Mike Pence to sit up there and talk about law and order, the Trump administration is a crime syndicate. I truly believe that we're looking at RICO charges for all of these people in the Trump administration and the Trump family once they leave office, and they investigate all of the things that they've been doing, all of these financial crimes, which Tish James and Cy Vance in Manhattan are on their ass about. They're going to have some really, really big problems, but we've seen complete lawlessness, as Erica said, wiping their ass with the Constitution. We still have a Muslim ban in place. We still have child separation in place. We still have Black people being gunned down by the police. We still have slave patrols that seem to be even more emboldened since they had those two racist white people from Minnesota parading their guns around on the Republican National Convention. And so this, obviously, the audience is for the people who want to assimilate with white supremacy and for the white supremacists themselves. But I don't see how anybody can watch this and walk away believing anything that these people are saying. But unfortunately, we don't point these things out in the way that last week it was all about this person didn't get to speak and, this didn't check all these boxes. And yet you have a whole ass Klan rally that's been broadcast for the past 3 days. And you don't hear the same level of outrage or even attention being brought to what these people are putting forth in terms of their vision of America that people were on Biden-Harris's case about.
Bottom line is, Greg, go ahead. Do what you do. Your assessment.
Listen, No. I think Eric and Reese have framed this perfectly. It is a Klan rally. It's a white nationalist terrorist Klan rally. And Brother Henderson is absolutely right about the Republican Party of Reconstruction, as you say. See, white nationalism is a floating signifier. It can apply to different moments of time differently. So, yes, during the 1860s and 70s, it was the radical Republicans, the Charles Sumner and them, Thaddeus Stevens and them. Yes, the Democratic Party, the party of Andrew Jackson, was the kind of locus for the white nationalist party. The white nationalist party can float anywhere. And because of the efforts of Brother Henderson and those stalwarts of the civil rights movement who penetrated the Democratic Party, it drove many of the open white nationalists into the Republican Party. The brother said he really don't know history, and I'm not going to lay that at North Carolina A&T. I mean, I went to Tennessee State. I hope that if he had gotten a degree from there, he'd be a little bit different. But Jack Robinson was a Republican who recognized what was happening very quick. Barry Goldwater was nominated in 1964. But to Erica's point and Reese's point, again, this must be said over and over again. Even as the ratings were down yesterday, because we don't really watch that bullshit. So I mean, we watch. Some people hate watch. I watch because I really enjoy my thing, and I'll tell you why. This is where I'm going with this, among others. Charles Blow said it again. Their job is to erase history and cloud reality. Pence standing at Fort McHenry, them using the Lincoln Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial, the White House. They are reclaiming their tool. They are reclaiming their symbols. These symbols were never meant for us. So when you see Melania Trump trot out in her paramilitary green with her catatonic face lifted behind, moving from teleprompter to bullshit. What is she is saying? She's not talking to me. I don't share a country with Melania Trump. Are you very serious? Of all the first ladies in the history of the White House, only one of them been butt naked in porno. And so she represents the ideal of white womanhood for white men. Now, it's very clear. I'm not mad at Kim Klacik or Vernon Jones, or I'm not mad at Jack Brewer or David Cameron. Why? Because clearly their strategy is going to be to get this election close enough to steal, and they're trying to lash black overhyped masculinity to white overhyped masculinity and maybe try to peel a few black men away from going to the polls. But when you saw Sterling Brown read that statement, brother, standing next to George Hill, the Milwaukee Bucks, you reported on this 2 years ago. Sterling Brown is the brother who the damn Paterola police, punk-ass police, that hazed in the parking lot of the 7-Eleven in Milwaukee. When you saw Robert Ory earlier today or yesterday say, if one of these cops takes my son's life, I'm going to take his life. I'm like Samuel Jackson. Yes, and when you saw Chris Webber, when you saw him tear up, those aren't tears of sadness. But he was looking down the whole time when he was talking about Charles Barkley. This is a man who is remembering when he was a boy coming out of school in Michigan to go to the University of Michigan. Then they stripped him of all their records. This is a man who would say, I did everything right. Woe be unto you, you white nationalists. You're the white nationalist party and that Republican Party. And guess where you at right now? I want you to smile and Mike. I want you to tell every lie you got, baby. I want you to stand in front of Fort McHenry, because when Francis Scott Key wrote the Star Spangled Banner, there were black enslaved Africans in Baltimore swimming to get to the ships of the British because they were trying to get to the British because your white ass was on the wrong side of history. I want you to embrace the Lincoln Memorial. I want you to embrace the Jefferson Memorial and the White House. I want you to throw Jackie Kennedy's roses out and remake the Rose Garden into a replica of Gorky Park in Russia. You know why? Because this ain't never been my country. And you know what I'm fighting for is my humanity. I want you to embrace it with your whole heart, baby, because some of these stupid people in the world now are going to be very clear that we each have to make a choice. Are you going to go down the line with these fascists who are going to destroy you? A woman got the nerve to talk about she had breast cancer and her life was saved. That's why she supports President Trump, who is trying to overturn the very damn Affordable Care Act that saved her life. Do you want to be on the same team as a nun who shook hands with the devil last night? Do you really want to, if you want to be with that team, I encourage you to go back to 1915 when they refounded the Klan on the top of Stone Mountain. They had a Bible that they opened and burned a cross and stuck a sword over the top of the Bible. That's that team. David Cameron, you and your white wife, you put the cop that killed Breonna Taylor in jail. But guess what? I ain't even going to protest with you, baby. We're going to see you in the street.
Come on, Dr. Carr.
Folks, when Nikki Haley spoke, she talked about this, no racism. And you heard what Mike Pence said. But this story here speaks to it. A Jacksonville, Florida couple whose home appraisal was very low. I'll tell you what happened. So the appraisal comes out, gives them a low appraisal. She goes, hold up, this ain't how this thing went. So she then goes in and removes the black items. New appraisal comes out, much higher value. Yo, people keep talking about we don't have racism in America, but why do these things keep happening? And then you have those who say, oh, that's, you're bringing those things up. Those are just, small little details. Nah, they're not quite small details when you're African American. And literally, your financial future is being impacted by racism. So let me unpack that. The reason I say your financial future, remember, most Americans, their wealth comes through home ownership. And so when you are in a situation where you have a home and you get less for your money, that's less money, which you can't invest, which you can't place elsewhere. That's what we have to understand, how racism still impacts us in the 21st century. Joining us right now is Abina Horton. She's the woman who went through this here. Abina, explain, folks, exactly what happened here that caused you to say, no, something is amiss here.
Well, for me, it was, when he came into the house, he was so rude to me in comparison to my husband. And he was so hostile when he saw me and sort of aggressive, just like, you can tell when someone has contempt for you. That was something that I could really feel in the room with him. And I just wanted him out of my house right away. So
now your husband is, the guy who came was a white guy.
Yes.
Okay. So he comes to your home and you immediately pick up on that. Okay, go ahead.
Well, he conversed with my husband first outside on our doorstep, and I could see that from my office, and he was acting pretty normal. And then when he came into my office to look at the room, he just seemed very surprised and to me very contemptuous. I felt like there was a shift sort of in the air. And to me, it felt like there was some personal issue that he had with me specifically. And so I just did not expect that the appraisal was going to go well. I remember distinctly thinking that this appraisal is not going to go well. There was a certain number that we needed to hit so that we would be able to get the best rate for our refinance transaction. And I didn't think we were gonna get it.
So you thought, hey, this is really a $450,000 house.
Well,
or just in that neighborhood.
Right. On the best day, I would say. I've scanned Zillow like most people do to just check and see what it's doing. And I think that's about as high as I've ever seen it go. So, that's definitely kind of around the high end, I would say, around 450, between 425, 450.
But that's not the number that he came back with.
No, he came back with 330. So there was a difference of $135,000.
Wow.
A stroke of a pen. He took that much equity.
And again, for the people who are watching to understand, when we talk about home appraisals, so when they come out, what they do is they come out and they look at everything. Look at, did you add a pool? They look at condition of the home, all those different things. That had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, no, that had nothing to do with it. I have no idea why he chose the comps that he chose. I have no idea why he would appraise us at 330 when, there's homes around us that are much smaller, fewer bathrooms, fewer bedrooms that were regularly going in the high threes. And the homes with 4 bedrooms like mine were going significantly higher than that.
And the problem here that people don't understand is that when the homes are appraised, again, this is all subjective. This is not like there's a sheet here where it's, okay, if it's 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms. I mean, typically, actually, the way it's supposed to go is that when you do have larger square footage, more rooms, more bedrooms, more bathrooms, improved amenities, you get a higher appraisal.
You would think, and also I think one of the more subjective terms is condition of the home.
Right.
That's something that factors in as well. So I think that's something where that really has to do with the eye of the appraiser. They're inside the house, really observing, small differences. They're looking for termites. They're looking for, structural damage, that sort of thing. And they pretty much say good condition, bad condition, very good condition, something like that to make the assessment. And it's a combination of factors between public records and what the appraiser is seeing. And for some reason, these two appraisers saw something that was $135,000 apart.
Now let's go back. He was fine talking to your husband, right?
Right. He appeared to be normal, and that's what my husband thinks as well.
But then he saw you.
Correct.
What difference between you and your husband?
Well, I'm a lady, and I'm a black woman. So there was a bit of a difference. I attribute the change to being. I thought it was based on some personal characteristic, and my suspicion is that it was race.
Right. So, but you're black. Your husband's not.
Correct.
And so he sees a white guy, but then he sees you. Oh, hell no. So then you, being a lawyer, you say, and then your bank agreed with you on this one. So then you did something that actually showed what the deal is. What did you do?
So what I did was I took down all of our family pictures that showed that there were African Americans living in the home, took down holiday cards, took down any books. I really am not sure at what these appraisals are looking at, but I took away anything visible that would.
So basically, you stripped all the blackness out the house.
I stripped the blackness out of the house, and I did not like that. It was very painful to do that.
And then a new appraiser comes out. Same company or?
So this was a different company because the bank hired a different company to handle it.
New appraiser comes out, and then what number do you get?
We get 465.
So 330, 465.
330. 465. I'm hearing a lot. This all started with a Facebook post, and there's been a lot of activity there talking about, well, it could have been this, it could have been that. It didn't necessarily have to have been race, but
Abina, you don't go from 330 to 465 because one person said, I really like the crown molding.
That's correct. Oh, and it's Abina, like Robin.
I'm sorry, Abina. I mean, so what, see, the reason that this is important because I deal with these white folks and some of these black people who are like, oh, y'all make too much out of this. When it's like, no, this is precisely it. One of the reasons why you have the wealth gap is because black people's homes were greatly undervalued. They were not able to then sell those homes at a higher price and then pocket that money, invest that money. And so we had lower home values, which meant a lower amount, and we didn't have much to play with. And this is, that $135,000, you take that, invest that, all of a sudden, your children's children are impacted based upon what you do with $135,000. And this is exactly what people. So when the Nikki Haley's of the world and the Mike Pence's of the world and other people say, "Oh no, there's no racism." No, this is racism at work right here.
I think we all have biases. People of every race and color have biases. And I think it's ridiculous to say that there are no biases, that there's no racism in the world. I mean, it's just disingenuous. I don't understand why you could even make that argument, given that we're just 50, 60 years out of civil rights. That's not that much time, to change hearts and minds. There's still that undercurrent there. So, I mean, I do believe that systemic racism exists. And in this case, I would like, and the reason that I brought this out and that I want to educate people about it, and a lot of people don't know about this issue, is because I would like someone to do a study on this.
Right. Oh, no, first of all, there have been studies. There have been blind testing. In Boston, they did this. They've done this when it came to showing of homes, and the realtor would go, you're black. No, we're going to show you these homes. And they're like, well, hey, hold up. Show me the homes over there. No, we'll show you over here. I mean, those things exist. Now, the company, the appraiser, what has happened to them? Did y'all report them? Anything happen?
Alexa, turn on kitchen light. Excuse me. That was my son's bedroom, his light coming off.
It's all right. So the appraiser, did y'all report this guy? Did y'all blast the company? What happened?
So we reported the individual and the company to HUD. We have not blasted this individual. I have no intent to do that. I intend to let the investigation play itself out, and so that they can explain this $135,000 difference to me in a way that makes sense. And if it does not make sense, I'm going to continue to believe that it was racism at work in my life.
Are you going to sue him?
I don't know that. Money has never been, an issue with this. It's always been about basically my feelings and me wanting to tell people what happened to me. So
right.
So I don't want to say either way, especially since they're probably watching.
Sue their asses. Look, the reason I understand it, I remember when I bought a previous home and the bank had the nerve to ask me and my wife for deposit slips because they did not necessarily believe the income. I'm like, I'm not giving your ass on deposit slips. I'm like, that ain't happening. Like, plus I ain't giving you that because of damn money direct deposit. Like, damn deposit slip. But again, those are the things that happen. And then when like yesterday, we had people to understand. Successful black people are impacted by, I was debating a sister yesterday who's Republican, and I was like, boo, it don't matter if you're a successful black person. This is the stuff that happens where we get screwed.
No, you can do everything right, go to the right schools, get the degrees, get married, have 2 kids and a dog, try to buy a house. And there's just all these little ways that add up to really keep you from attaining the same equality that other people have.
Indeed. Well, look, good luck with it. First of all, thank you for sharing your story. The New York Times picked up on it. The Facebook post, a lot of people have seen it. And it's caused a lot of people to tell their story about what they've experienced as well. And hopefully what it also has done is caused folks who really didn't understand this to now be more mindful when it comes to home appraisal, and to do this. Make sure that more than one person actually is doing the home appraisal where you're getting a better understanding because, you're right. You should not have to strip your blackness in order to get high value or the proper value of your home.
I don't think it should be that subjective at all.
Shouldn't be.
The fact that it's so subjective means there's a problem with the industry, whether it's race or whatever.
Put that person on blast in the company and sue their ass. Okay, I'm done. We appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Come on, panel. This is the thing, Reese, where people just refuse to understand. And this is how black people are impacted. This is how we're impacted economically. That economic keeps us from being able to fund businesses, give to colleges, position for our children. And this is a perfect example of how white people are able to have the highest amount of white wealth in the country and black folks for the lowest, because that's how we get screwed.
Absolutely. And I think that it's a perfect example of how when people try to suggest that economic reforms are going to solve racism. No, absolutely not. She didn't get a lower appraisal because a white person doesn't have Medicare for all. She got a lower appraisal because the person was flat out racist. And, this has a compounding impact because not only is it a matter of equity, but as she mentioned, it was a matter of her interest rate. And so the higher your interest rate is, the more that you're paying on a monthly basis. So now you have the wage gap that black people experience, or as a black woman. 61 cents on the dollar for what a white man makes. Now she's married to a white husband, so that kind of mitigates it a little bit. But, you know, in terms of her specific racism that she's going to experience, you have the wage gap. Then you turn around and you have lower equity in your house. Then you turn around and you pay more on a monthly basis for the house that is worth significantly more. And so I'm glad that she's telling this story, because at the end of the day, Black people have to survive, and it's very painful to have to strip the Blackness from your home. But for $135,000, I think people would rather take down a couple of pictures and a couple of statues and not take their chances. But it should not take doing that. It should not take having to hire multiple appraisals. Those things are expensive. They're like $400 and $500, $600. And so it's disgusting, but it's very insidious. It goes beyond redlining, and it goes beyond all these things that people are already accustomed to expecting racism in the real estate industry.
But this is the thing here, Greg, that you're right. We shouldn't have to take things down because, again, all the people who keep saying, oh, no, we're all the same. Everybody's in the same boat. No, stop. You need to stop seeing color. Stop fixating on that. And to your point earlier, we can do all the right damn thing. We can go to the schools. We can not have a criminal record. We can never do drugs. We can never jaywalk. We could sit here, take the bass out of our voice and have more treble in our voice. We can do all those things, and then they're going to still remind you, your ass still black.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Roland, you know, Sister Abena is a lawyer, and she knows this. I'm sure she took it in law school. I mean, I teach this every semester when I do my race, law, and change class at Howard. We go over the Fair Housing Act of 1968, which is in many ways very two-faced. You have to understand that even complaining to HUD won't do anything. HUD has the ability to file a suit independent of Abena and her husband. They can actually pursue this, but they won't. And what we just heard is not an outlying case. White realtors for years, actually since the passage of the Fair Housing Act, have said that when you're selling a home or refinancing a home, they encourage, particularly when they're selling a home, they encourage people to take out all the stuff that personalizes the home. That's what they say generally. But we understand that this is being driven by perception. You see, money is only a marker for value, and value is a commingled thing. It isn't just about objectively measuring out the land and looking at the quality of the construction of the house. No, this is about perception. The New York Times article notes that before the second appraiser came, Abena took she and her husband's child, and went and left the house, leaving that white man there by himself. So the appraiser is looking through the lens of white nationalism, of course, but that appraiser is calculating in their head value based on a potential sale to a customer. So this isn't just about how much the house is worth. It's about how much can we get on the market. And that is absolutely based on perception. Yep. The history of housing since the Fair Housing Act has revealed to us that it is a particularly ineffective tool when it comes to this specific category, because again, this is being driven by perception, and the appraiser's defense will be, this is what I thought I could get on the market. Now, if they were being honest, it would say, this is what I think I can get on the market from a buyer that says they don't want to buy from a black person. Right. It's the same reason they had restrictive covenants in housing mortgages. It's a difficult thing to win in a court of law. And I know Abena knows that, which is probably one of the reasons why she didn't really want to talk about it.
Reese, go ahead.
I think you meant Erica.
I'm sorry.
Erica. I think, yeah.
Erica.
Yes.
Yeah, and this kind of just goes back to show you that, you know, the whole kind of speech that many were given about being 10 times better, having to do more, would ensure kind of cementing Black life into a better part of society. It's not it, because we cannot take our skin off. And so until there is a real addressing, really, that everything that we see systemically, whether visible or invisible, has really been created to diminish the quality of life for Black people and continue to hold white people at this place, the pinnacle, the summit of what it means to live and to be free. We'll continue to experience and see things like this. And that is kind of the part of how we really traverse through Black life, understanding that, while one colleague may be talking about refinancing their home and having it be a seamless process, there's so many different steps that we have to take in order to make sure that our process is something that we can actually digest. So this is just another full example of systemic racism, and really just continuing to project that the best life is the white life.
Well, that is certainly the case what we're dealing with. Folks got to go to break when we come back. We're going to show you a couple of critical ads. One of them from veterans. And then, guys, y'all launched it too early. Calm down. One of them is a veteran. And one of them is a former Trump official who says, yeah, he's aiding and abetting white supremacy. That's next in Roland Unfiltered. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. All right, folks, at Ceek.com, folks, black-owned company, launched by Mary Spiel. They've got a couple of great things. These virtual reality heads that you see right here allows you to place your phone, pop it into here, and you can watch the Ceek.com virtual reality content right there with this headset. It's a absolutely great tool. You can also watch 360-degree video with this as well. Plus, they have the amazing 4D 360-degree headphones, which, of course, tremendous bass, Bluetooth. You can actually talk with the headset. Gamers love these as well. Great for music as well. If you want to actually get one of both of these, go to Ceek.com, Ceek.com, right here. Pull the graphic right here. Use the promo code RMVIP2020. RMVIP 2020 for Ceek.com. All right, folks, let's talk about this story here. Out of Detroit, Jacob Wohl, Jack Berkman, two absolute idiots. They just lie, and constantly. They actually are responsible for this, and this was put out by the Secretary of State of Michigan. This is a robocall that's been going out to black people in Detroit. Listen to this.
Jared, the other thing that happened overnight is that the NBA has now postponed games in large part as a result of a protest or boycott by the players. This relates to the sort of large.
This is the
Taylor from Project 1599, a civil rights organization founded by Jack Berkman and Jacob Wohl. Mail-in voting sounds great. But did you know that if you vote by mail, your personal information will be part of a public database that will be used by police departments to track down old warrants and be used by credit card companies to collect outstanding debt? The CDC is even pushing to use records for mail-in voting to track people for mandatory vaccines. Don't be finessed into giving your private information to the man. Stay safe and beware of vote by mail.
What's great? So the Secretary of State, go to iPad. This is what Jocelyn Benson put. My office has received a recording of a robocall targeting Detroit voters using racially charged stereotypes and false information to deter voting by mail. It is an unconscionable, indefensible, blatant attempt to lie to citizens about their right to vote. Jacob Wohl and Jack Berkman, two insidious individuals who they've had numerous things in the past where they've lied. And to sit here and say, oh, your personal information, this is the kind of stuff, Reese, that black folks better get used to. The Republicans are going to employ. They do not want black people turning out in this election.
It's all about suppression. They do not have to convince you that Donald Trump is going to be a good president. All they have to do is to convince you not to vote. And so we have to be very, very vigilant in how we are receiving information and making sure that we're educated. Voting plan A, voting plan B, voting plan C, and voting plan D. And then once you set those plans, you have to keep checking. We're only under 70 days away, so we don't have much longer to go, which is why we have to get prepared now.
Reese, I'm sorry, Erica, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about the 2016 election, Michigan, Wisconsin were two of the three states that were heavily targeted. And we saw voter suppression upwards of 200,000 votes in the state of Wisconsin based on voter ID laws. And when we see the margin of victory for Donald Trump, it was 77,000 votes. But that was because of a very, very concerted voter suppression action plan and Russian interference. And so we're talking about being woke. This is a part of being woke, understanding that if these kind of calls that are coming out of the normal during an election season and that they're coming to areas where there are high concentration of Black folks, that is something that is really designed only to, as Reese just said, to suppress your vote and really to create another level of voter apathy. So people need to be aware that this is, all of the guards have been taken off. They've got a $200 million ad buy that's going to start being in effect. Labor Day weekend is only going to get worse from here. Get ready and be prepared to cast your ballot early and with friends.
Greg, here's another story. Anthony, go to my iPad. This is a story by NBC. Viral pro-Trump tweets came from fake African-American spam accounts, Twitter says. And then the story reads that Twitter has taken action to stop a spam operation that pushed messages from fake accounts about Black people abandoning the Democratic Party. The company removed 2 fake accounts and deleted the account of a San Diego man who spammed the platform. Again, this is what they're going to be doing, Greg. So this guy had this account, went dim to rep, logged over 11,000 retweets on a single tweet that claimed that the user was a lifelong Democrat who was pushed to vote Republican by the Black Lives Matter movement. The tweet was posted shortly after the account was created Tuesday. First of all, that's the first sign. If an account just opened last week, they fake.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, brother. I mean, I agree. Everything that Reese and Erica have said in terms of this full spectrum strategy. The White Nationalist Party is going to win this election by stealing if they're going to win it. They've abandoned all pretenses. They are speaking to their utterly racist base. They are in courts. There's a story that just broke today. The Trump administration won a victory in the Iowa courts when a judge said that the registrar couldn't send out information for people to get absentee ballots because they pre-filled out their names to send them out. There's going to be all kinds of lies told, like this story, these 2 stories you just said. They're going to do everything they can to get it close enough to steal. And when you read or listen to Greg Palias and many others, Ari Berman and them, they'll tell you they've been doing this for the last several cycles. So many absentee ballots that are turned in or provisional ballot votes are thrown away. Once they get the ballots, they can decide that the signatures don't match, which is why I have from Maryland, of course, my envelope to request an absentee ballot. But I'm going to be masked up, gloved up, and in a hazmat suit if I need to be. I'm getting in line and voting in person. Why? Because let's be very clear. Folks who don't have the option, yes, absentee. But if you can go in person, early vote. If you can get off the day, take the day and go and vote. Why? Because what these white supremacists, what these white nationalists are getting ready to do is use every trick they have to get the election close enough to steal. And finally, for my deep friends and colleagues and comrades who are saying the vote doesn't matter, all the parties are the same, I understand that logic. I really do. The only thing I would ask you is that if and when they steal this election and you didn't vote, which meant you did vote by your absence, I just want to make sure that all of you are strapped, all of you are ready to take it to the streets and the bushes, and that you can embrace what comes next with your whole heart. Because what we are talking about is not a full embrace of the Democratic agenda, but what we're talking about is perhaps forestalling what may even be the inevitable. which is the disintegration of this set the state project, because these white boys gonna roll this until the wheels literally fall off. So think twice before you say don't vote. Because if you're not ready to get in the street and do that, I think you better just go and strap up and check your voter registration and try to forestall this thing.
Donald Trump is speaking tonight, but the folks at Vote Vets, they have something to say about a Gold Star family to Donald Trump.
My son was the first person to die in combat under Donald Trump. Just 5 days into his presidency, Trump ordered Ryan's SEAL team into Yemen. Not from the Situation Room with all the intelligence assembled, but sitting across a dinner table from Steve Bannon. There was no vital interest at play, just Donald Trump playing big man going to war. And when it went horribly wrong...
When you lose a $75 million airplane, and more importantly, American life is lost and wounded, I don't believe that you can call it a success.
Donald Trump demeaned my son's sacrifice to play to the crowd. For nearly 4 years, Trump has assailed our country's core values. When Russia put bounties on our troops' heads, Trump defended Putin instead of our military.
I think it's a hoax.
He kneecapped the Postal Service to undermine our right to vote.
This election will be the most rigged election in history.
He's misled us throughout the pandemic.
Yeah, no, I don't take responsibility at all.
200,000 Americans will have died before we vote. They and Ryan have one thing in common. It didn't have to be but for Donald Trump. If you hear one thing, let it be this. Don't trust Donald Trump with your kid's life or your own.
Folks, certainly a strong ad there, but man, we saw this other ad. A former Trump Department of Homeland Security official lays out why this man should not get 4 more years. She said he comforts white supremacy.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Newman. I am first and foremost a follower of Jesus Christ. I'm a wife and a proud mom. I voted for Trump in 2016 primarily because of the pro-life issue. I served in the Trump administration at the Department of Homeland Security and became the Assistant Secretary for Counterterrorism and Threat Prevention. In my role as Assistant Secretary for Counterterrorism, we looked at emerging threats, including the growing threat from domestic terrorists. And over the period of 2017 to 2018, we started to see that rise of the white supremacist agenda. I and my leadership at the Department of Homeland Security were very clear that we found the ideology behind white nationalism, white supremacy to be a growing threat. A very common refrain that I was asked was, does the president's rhetoric make your job harder? And the answer is yes. The president's actions and his language are, in fact, racist. Things like, they're good people on both sides, or send them back from where they came from. Those words gave permission to white supremacists to think that what they were doing was permissible. And I do think that the president's divisive language is indirectly tied to some of the attacks that we have seen in the last 2 years. The reason government is supposed to exist is to plan and prepare for external threats like we're seeing today with COVID. There were plans put in place for a pandemic for 15 years. When we started to see that a pandemic was on its way to our shores in January, any number of experts told me we need to be executing on these plans. But from January until March 11th, what you saw instead was a number of good public servants attempting to do their job and the president telling them to stop because he didn't want the economy to tank and he didn't want a distraction from his campaign. I'm sorry, Mr. President. You were hired to handle America's worst day, and you've absolutely failed. I do not think that we can afford 4 more years of President Trump. We are less safe today because of his leadership. We will continue to be less safe as long as he is in control. And this year, I'll be voting for Joe Biden.
Look, this is somebody who was on the inside, Reese, who said, yep, aiding and abetting white supremacists.
As was she. So let's
Right.
start there. However, I do think that it's important to have these folks jump ship, and blow the whistle and blow the lid off of what's happening, that we all see what's happening but it does add a little bit more credibility when it's coming from somebody like Elizabeth Newman. But let's not forget that there was footage of her testifying about the child separation policy. So I understand that you have a lot of Republicans that are going to try to rehabilitate their complicitness or actual co-conspirator role in this Trump administration's white nationalist agenda. But if she wants to speak out now, and if she wants to inform people about how dangerous he is, then good on her for that very specific thing.
Go right ahead, Erica.
Yeah, slow clap. And for me, it's a little bit annoying and aggravating from two places. One of them is when people talk about their faith. And as a person, I've been very, forthcoming. I am a believer, and I do definitely have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And I just don't understand that if a person has a relationship with Christ, how they can definitely support the son of a Klansman. So that's one thing. So I would love for people to stop invoking their faith, particularly in support of somebody who does not read the Bible, called the second book of Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, who clearly has not been to any worship services, that spends in our taxpayer money most of his weekends golfing at one of his several golf courses, either in Virginia or in Bedminster. But then forward after that, kind of what we've seen after, kind of the fallout from this is that people write books, they go on all of these different shows, they're paid. And so her position, if it is very authentic and that she's, using her experience to say, these are the things that I've seen, and in fact that I'm going to vote for him, well, good on her. But I'm hoping that she's talking to the people that are in her family, the folks that follow kind of the same line of thinking when it comes to pro-life, whatever issue they want to bring forth to say this is the reason that they voted for Donald Trump, whatever excuse it is that they make. Do better and influence the people around you that are going to be more likely to vote for Trump, because most of us did not support him and will not support the son of a Klansman.
Hey, folks, earlier, the Major League Baseball commissioner, he was trying to get the Mets as well as the Marlins to do some sort of demonstration, but then play the game an hour later. The players had another idea. This is what they did, y'all. They took the field, had a 42-second moment of silence, then both teams walked off, and the only thing they left on the field, it's a Black Lives Matter shirt. Watch this.
And now Lewis Brinson announced as the leadoff hitter for Miami. And all of the Marlins and Mets have come out of their dugouts. Michael Wacha takes off his hat, and all the Mets on the field are removing their hats as well. And now, after a moment of silence that lasted 42 seconds, the day before we celebrate Jackie Robinson Day, the Mets are exiting the field after both teams exchanged a wave of caps to one another. So it would appear as though, after a poignant moment, that the Mets and Marlins will not be playing baseball tonight. And a Black Lives Matter shirt left on top of home plate.
I keep telling people out there, I understand that folks want to see things sped up, but I'm telling you, you have not seen this. You have not seen white ball players standing with black ball players. So much has changed since Colin Kaepernick took a knee in 2016. And to see them, people thought, oh, great, we're going to have a game. And they come out. And some of y'all are saying, why 42 seconds? It's because tomorrow is the anniversary of when Branch Rickey and Jackie Robinson met the first time, which led to him being signed by the Brooklyn Dodgers. That's what tomorrow is. That's what the 42 seconds was for. That right there, people can say symbolism means nothing, Reese, but these things do matter when you have this generation who is saying, no, we're going to shut it down. And if y'all don't like it, tough, we're not going to play.
It absolutely does matter. It's so striking, though, how we have to do all of this for what should be such a basic concept that Black Lives Matter. I mean, this is really exposing the depths of the resistance to our Black humanity in this country. And we're not enslaved peoples anymore. You know, that ended, a century or so ago. But we're still grappling with people who don't even want to acknowledge that. I mean, even at the Republican National Convention, the Klan convention that's been going on, they absolutely refuse to say Black Lives Matter. They'll say these specific Black Lives Matter, but not even using the three words together. And so it's jarring, even as a Black person, to just see the level of protests required for this just basic understanding for people to have. But I'm hoping that it's really that much more jarring to white people out there. I'm not a person who has a whole lot of faith in this necessarily waking people up immediately, but hopefully the cumulative effect of people, not just Black people, but not just one particular team, but a galvanization around this notion that Black people should not be gunned down by the police.
Right.
I hope that it shakes people out of this complacency and this just stubborn belligerence about Black Lives Mattering.
And then, of course, you want to see how whiteness works. Erica, here is Brian Urlacher. He posted this on his Instagram stories. Brett Favre played the Monday Night Football game the day his dad died, threw 4 TDs in the first half, and was a legend for playing in the face of adversity. NBA players boycott the playoffs because a dude reaching for a knife wanted on a felony sexualist warrant was shot by police. Keep in mind, Brian Urlacher has a Black son.
Right. And when we think about Brett Favre, also know that, it wasn't but a few weeks ago that he was golfing with the son of a Klansman. It is just kind of shows what the priorities are in this country. But along the lines of the Major League Baseball, this is kind of a precedent that has been set, because when you consider the percentage of Black ball players, it's about 7%. It's not that high. So to have this overarching statement that is made to really penetrate the minds of those people on the other side of the screen that are Black and white, but mostly white, does say something, and it does kind of maybe steal the moment for a bit to give more consideration for really something like Reese said, stringing together those three words in a demonstrative way that Black lives do matter, and they should matter, because we should not be faced with assault on every end just for being Black.
All right, folks, that is it for us. Dr. Carr had to jump off. We surely appreciate him being on the show today, Reese and Erica as well. Hey, I did not forget, y'all, that Senator Kamala Harris spoke today, gave a rebuttal to Trump before he even spoke. I know y'all don't want to hear the BS that Donald Trump has to say, so we're going to live stream Senator Kamala Harris's speech earlier, exactly when Donald Trump speaks tonight. So y'all turn on y'all notifications. So when Trump's, it goes through this pomp and circumstance, when the other people are playing his speech, we're going to stream her speech. If y'all want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered, please support us. Don't Bring the Funk Fan Club. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal.me/R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo.com/RM Unfiltered. You can send a money order to New Vision Media, NU Vision Media Inc., 1625 K Street Northwest, Suite 400, Washington, D.C., 2006. All y'all watching on YouTube, yesterday, y'all, we hit the most number ever live watching on YouTube, nearly 9,000. It's about 6,500, y'all. Y'all can give right there on YouTube. Join our Bring the Funk Fan Club. I know I went over time today. My bad. But we had so much great stuff. I appreciate everybody being on the show today. Again, we do this because there's nobody else who is speaking to our issues 5 days a week live like we are doing. We need your support to make this thing happen. We're going to keep being here every single day, giving them hell. And don't forget, next Friday, the 2nd anniversary of Roland Martin Unfiltered. We got some great stuff planned for you as well. All right, folks, I'll see y'all later.